Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about Marvel Comics and Tom Breevort, I think, who said some things he probably is going to regret in the not too distant future. This is coming from Bounty in the Comics. He said that he'd rather comic books cause outrage than be ignored. Lots of angry people tend to correlate with a lot of people following a project. In other words,
no.
Marvel wants you angry.
Which we've mentioned before. We've said any publicity is good publicity as far as they're concerned. The problem is where it might create like a temporary boost. Most people are just going to get mad and they're just going to walk away completely. So it's going to bite you in the ass more long term.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because a lot of people, maybe they're not vocally upset online because they're not terminally online. They just choose not to buy the books, right? And this kind of happened to some degree in the 90s where like, oh, we're going to kill a character off and then we're going to make a big event out of it or whatever. But I'm like, people are over that. The reason readers are picking manga over Western comics is that, you know, they know that the stories, the characters, for the most part, are going to be pretty consistent, and they're not going out of their way to antagonize. They're trying to entertain you, and there is sometimes, you know, shock value in manga or whatever. But like, they tell their story for the sake of the story to appeal to the widest audience possible, usually, and then they kind of get in, get out, don't milk it for 50 years. You know, you move on to another project or whatever. But like Marvel, just to have him come out and say that. It really is pretty eye-opening. And he also
say the quiet part out loud now.
Yeah, pretty much. Then he also said that, you know, comic books right now, they only exist as fodder for movies, which we knew.
Again, the quiet part has been saying out loud. Said out loud.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, you'll get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo.
Go out to Kickstarter. We've got the Shadowbinder Steampunk Heart Enamel Pin Set Series 1 out there. You've got less than 3 days. So check it out on Kickstarter, link in the description. So both of these are coming from Bounty in the Comics, and I think they both came from the same event.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was an interview, yeah.
It was an interview. It was the Man with a Hat. Oh, no, it was on his blog. The Man with a Hat Substack blog. Okay. So they're talking about a lot of controversial character decisions and story decisions. So we'll talk more about the fodder for TV and movies here. But they said, taking note of the passing reference to fan outrage made by Breevort in his post, the fan will follow up his initial inquiry with another, this time asking, does the online sentiment you see tend to correlate to the commercial success or failure of the books you put out? He asserted the situation is seldom as cut and dried as that, especially since for any project that you want to announce, you can look around and find people holding almost any possible opinion on what's to come. I will say that it's always far better to have readers talking about a project than not, even if what they're saying is largely negative. The opposite of sales isn't anger, it's silence. So lots of angry people tends to correlate with a lot of people following a project, even if a bunch of them
they're buying it though.
No. And you can actually make that correlation. You can look at, say, the piss poor decisions with X-Men, the piss poor decisions with Spider-Man, with Captain America, which he mentioned earlier in the article, you know, turning him into a Nazi, turning him into Hydra. There might have been an initial bump in sales because people wanted to, you know, see what the big deal was, but then after they realize they don't like it, they stop buying it.
Right.
And the old fans, you chase them off. They don't come back, you know, and it's just like, that's ridiculous. They said, notably, Breevort is not the first member of the modern comic book, or the first modern comic book creator to admit that outrage is now considered positive. Graham McMillan, in January 2024, longtime DC and current Superman Volume 6 writer Joshua Williamson talked with him and expressed his exhaustion that sometimes people get really angry and they spend money, which is the saddest thing.
Here's the thing, though. These people are going to run with this narrative because they directly benefit from it.
Yes.
You know, it's not true. You might get a slight uptick initially, but it's not going to last. And yeah, people are outraged and talking about it. So yes, if you go by engagement, but sometimes Disney does look at engagement and they consider positive and negative engagement, both engagement. You might get more engagement, but that does not mean that does not translate to sales.
So,
not long term.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Are they saying this because they're trying to justify their existence to their bosses? Because I'm sure people at Disney, at Marvel, right, are asking questions like, hey, yeah, you just kind of like ruined these characters. Why is Spider-Man not selling like it used to? Why are the X-Men not selling like they used to? You know, what's going on here? Because we're looking at these sales numbers and they're just going down and down and down. And I mean, part of it is the overall health of the floppy comic book industry, but a lot of it is the bread and butter, the reliable, Wednesday warriors, the middle-aged men. You chase them off with piss poor decisions, trying to chase a new audience. And in a lot of ways, I think they just honestly thought they could do whatever the hell they wanted to do because, screw you, we're bankrolled by Disney now. Disney has infinite money, and we can do whatever the hell we want.
And I'm trying to figure out where their new ideas and new stories come from because they keep running with, for the films and shows, old stories. But a lot of your new stuff didn't do well because it was just race bending, gender bending, sexual identity swapping. It was all that crap. It wasn't even, and that's your outrage. It's usually something not new. It's something that you did that was stupid, or you changed the character for whatever reason. That's all it is.
And a lot of it too is like, yeah, the characters have been changed so much, or the storylines have been changed so much, are only very loosely based on the comics. And I can actually see a day in the not too distant future, especially with creatives like Rob Liefeld taking issue with Disney, where they're just like, you know what, we're just going to make stuff up. We're just going to make it up. We're just going to make up new characters and new stories and whatever. So we don't have to pay these comic creators, not have to deal with it.
It would be refreshing change to make up new stuff. I mean, maybe make a new character instead of race swapping, gender swapping, another one,
Yeah. So they're talking about the X-Mansion, the Lego X-Mansion being based on the 90s X-Men, which a lot of the X-Men merchandise now, they keep going back to the 90s because that's when the X-Men was most popular, right? Mm-hmm. And he said the X-Men 97 and the Lego X-Mansion are based on the X-Men of a particular era, an era that fans were very vocally afraid things would be shifting. No, an era fans were vocally afraid things would be shifting back to when the Krakoa era had run its course.
Yeah, they're trying to argue that they were really afraid that we would move past Krakoa and go back to the stuff when people liked it.
Go back to X-Men when it was the most popular, right? Like go back to,
they love that Krakoa progressive bullshit. Nobody didn't.
But the purpose of Marvel Publishing is to be out in front, the tip of the spear, generating new ideas, new stories that can serve as creative fodder for eventual film and animation development.
Except they keep using stuff that already was made and not the stuff they're coming up with now.
Look, X-Men 97 was very well received by fans. They keep going back to the well with the merchandise. It's just like Star Wars. Like, you can try to supplant the original trilogy, but you never will. X-Men from the 80s and 90s is what works. And in fact, the casting rumors for the MCU version of the X-Men seem to indicate that they're going with the 90s team. They were talking about Gambit, Rogue, and I'm like, that would be their best bet. I mean, that's the version of the X-Men that sold the best. I mean, they were blowing it up in the toy aisle. They had a cartoon show. They had an arcade machine. They had, like, everybody knew the X-Men. They had a tie-in with Pizza Hut, and now nobody gives a shit about the X-Men.
Mm-mm.
And people were actually hoping that after Krakoa, they would go back to basics with the X-Men.
But this idiot's basically like, Krakoa was great and everybody loved that. They don't want to go back to that. It's it's the opposite, you moron.
It killed the franchise. So this guy needs to be like...
I'm like, why are they in the toilet? I don't know.
Yeah, this is just really not... I mean, I know he's not the brightest bulb in the box, but like... This is ridiculous. I think what's going on is the stuff that has gotten greenlit on his watch when he's been in charge is the stuff he wants to see pushed to Disney Plus, whatever.
They've tried, and it doesn't do well.
Yeah, they're bringing that up. They actually bring it up in the article. They're talking about Ms. Marvel, Riri Williams, all these characters that, female Thor, and it's actually been to the detriment of the MCU. Mm-hmm. The new stuff does not have the same it factor that the old stuff had. And I'm sorry you don't want to hear it, but on your watch, Tom, Marvel Comics has collapsed. And it's not what,
and no matter how much you say that everybody wants more Krakoa, it's not going to make it true.
that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. I mean, he said some dumb stuff, but that is literally the dumbest fucking thing. Nobody wants Krakoa. It started off strong. Hickman dipped out, and then the whole thing came off the rails. They spent 5 years kicking around on a plant island and having 3 ways on the moon, and nobody gives a shit.
Is he the one behind the X-Men prom shit?
It was on his watch, yeah.
Need we say more?
Yeah, I mean, look, you want to save Marvel Comics, fire editorial and get whoever's in charge here in the U.S. of Marvel Rivals and have them just overhaul the entire line and be like, yeah, we're gonna keep it more in line with Marvel Rivals because they understand. The freaking Chinese game company understands Marvel characters better than Marvel Comics.
Honestly, at this point, just stop making them in general because no one's buying them really. And you have more than enough stories over decades that are good stories you could take to movies. You tried using this shit for TV shows and events, and it does not work.
No.
It's not, it failed miserably. Nothing that they're putting out is even worthy of being fodder for TV and movies. You have years of good stuff. I would just recommend going with that and just not even bothering anymore.
That actually, you know what? I think that's a good call because I'm sitting here looking at like what is selling the best. A lot of times it's just reprints of Infinity Gauntlet or Dark Phoenix Saga or whatever. It's like you're never going to top that stuff. So why bother?
Give it a rest for a while. You can always bring it back, but bring it back to what it was, not this new shit. And, you know, people might be interested if it had a break for a while. But right now, you have more than enough. You don't need this stuff.
No. So let's wrap this one up, guys. Please subscribe for more pop culture, news, views, and rants. And we'll talk later.
Bye.